Splendid. Thank you very much indeed. And welcome everybody. My name is Andrew Beurschgens. I am one of the fellows associated with the Competitive Intelligence Fellows, Council of Competitive Intelligence. It gives me great pleasure and opportunity to bring together quite an esteemed set of panelists who we will get into introducing soon. The focus of this webinar as part of our either third Thursday or fourth Thursday of every month is exploring a competitive intelligence culture map. And we'll explain a little bit more about that as we unravel. So just to move on, we wouldn't be here without any of our gold partner sponsors. So that's both Proactive Worldwide and Corporate Insight. Proactive Worldwide examines competitors, suppliers, customers, regulatory issues, and more through advanced competitive market and customer intelligence to deliver a more complete picture of the decision-making environment with a far-reaching perspective that uncovers hidden opportunities and key threats. With more than 30 years of experience, Proactive leverages its own proprietary methodology, a deep bench of researchers and analysts and in-house industry specialists to produce insights that have real impact. All of us here at the Fellows want to express our deep gratitude and thanks for supporting us as a gold partner. Thank you, David. Corporate Insight specializes in deep behind the login competitive intelligence, evaluating digital customer experiences across more than 200 institutions in financial services, insurance, and healthcare to deliver actionable insight for smarter decisions. The firm's research transforms raw competitive data into actionable intelligence that helps product, marketing, digital, and strategy teams benchmark their performance, identify gaps, and build customer experiences. The firm's clients include many of the most recognized financial healthcare institutions in North America, from traditional and online brokerages to retirement record keepers, from national health plans to regional banks. Corporate Insight works most closely with teams in competitive intelligence, digital strategy, and product management, marketing, and compliance. Again, thank you both for being our 2026 Gold Sponsor Partners for the CI Fellows webinar series. Those are the beautiful faces. Again, thank you, David, and thank you, Andrew. If you are, as an attendee, interested in learning more about either of these top two tier CI and consulting services, please reach out to David at Proactive, fellow at the top, or Andrew at Corporate Insight, fellow at the bottom. The information provided above can also be found on the CO Fellows website at www.cifellows.com under the About Us section. So, and if there are other people who are interested in being a sponsor at all, then please don't hesitate to reach out to either Jeffrey Sisk, details there, or our current president, Amir Fleischman, again, details there. So thank you for that, gentlemen. So that sets the scene in terms of who got us here. So thank you very much indeed, Corporate Insight. Thank you very much indeed, Proactive Worldwide. Again, this is about, having a discussion about a culture map exists across the world. It's based on the inspiration I took from trying to moderate this, as we'll find out. It was inspired by Erin Mailer's influential title to create the CI culture map. So her premise of her book is she was an INSEAD professor, Erin Mailer. She realized that global business isn't a monolith, it isn't one shape fits all, and our deeply ingrained cultural DNA dictates how we interact. In her book, The Culture Map, she identified 8 scales that represent the most common areas where culture gaps occur. So communicating, evaluating, leading, deciding, trusting, disagreeing, scheduling, and persuading. We're not going to get into detail here. That's the benefit of Erin Mailer's book. And I would encourage you, even as part of your own personal growth, and you're engaged with a sort of multinational organization, is to engage. However, the magic of the map isn't where a country sits in a vacuum, but where it sits relative to another. So for example, here we've got the UK, neutral on disagreement, and you're talking to someone from France, very confrontational. You might think they're attacking you. To a Russian, however, that same French person, and I seem that I've lost my French flag, but think of it less towards the right of Russia. You might think they're attacking you. To a Russian, however, that same French person might seem overly polite. So that sort of French flag would appear towards away from confrontational. So in essence, politeness is entirely relative. So to an American, a French person can seem brutally blunt. To a Russian, that exact same person can seem like a master diplomat beating around the bush. So that's the essence of what we're looking to do. And to help us do that, and I say we create a culture map, is because we are devoid of representation from Africa. We are devoid of representation on this great panel of people from the Middle East, and we are devoid of people from Southeast Asia. And hasten to add, we're probably devoid, well, we know that we're devoid of people from the United States as well, where a lot of this practice, through the works of the late departed Jan Herring, created the works and the framework to move the practice out of government activity into business environment. So that's why we're getting into a culture map. And to help us explore that culture map, we've got 4 panelists today, and those are Adrienne, Erik, Major Neeraj, Bali, and Tom. I'll let them introduce themselves very quickly, and we're also jointly greeted by a 5th colleague who I'll introduce in a minute. But Adrienne, would you like to just say a few words about who you are and how long you've been doing this stuff from your native Argentina?
Okay, absolutely. Thank you, Andrew. Well, my name is Erik Elgersma. I have been doing this for an amazing 26 years in terms of CI. I also worked before as a CFO and as a marketing manager, so I have kind of say different lives lived. Well, I have done a PhD and the like, so I think that summarizes it.
Thank you very much indeed, Adrienne. So he's going to become our spokesman, not for Latin America, because as we'll come on to work out, Latin America is quite a large place and there are unique differences around this. And in effect, this whole panel could be, just focused on Latin America, with other people from different countries in Latin America being able to dial these issues up. But moving across from Latin America into Europe to represent Holland, this isn't the Eurovision Song Contest. Erik, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. My name is Erik Elgersma, and I have been involved in October this year for 30 years in competitive intelligence, usually in support of strategy. 23 years I've worked in 2 large companies and large meaning $10 billion sales plus per year. And the last 7 years I've worked as an independent consultant. My last employer allowed me to write down my experiences in the field of competitive and market intelligence, which translated into 2 books in English, both called Strategic Analysis Cycle, the handbook and the toolbook. They're about a decade old and not completely actual anymore, but some things in this wonderful line of business are timeless, and I hope the timeless part will still serve people well.
Brilliant. No, thank you very much indeed, Erik. So if anything, you are walking away at this point in time with 3 book recommendations, right? But let me introduce you to Major Neeraj Bali. Mr. Neeraj, are you there?
All right, yes. So greetings from India. My name is Neeraj Bali. I served in the Indian Army for a little over 40 years. And for the last 10 years, I've been in the corporate sector. I'm a faculty member for Institute for Competitive Intelligence. And in a belated bout of insanity, I started doing PhD this year in my 68th year. which will complete by the time I'm 72 or 73, I think. So there goes. I've written a book called The Winning Culture, which is about translating lessons from the Indian Army into corporate world and how you can learn something from there. And that is about all. But the final point is that my rank is actually Major General. I don't mind this at all because this gives me a rather youngish profile. So I suppose on balance, it's not a bad idea to lose four ranks in the hierarchy. But thank you. I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Brilliant. No, thank you, Neeraj. And look at that, we've got our 5th book already. So that's really good. Or 4th book. Yeah. So thank you, representing feedback and perspectives from India, Neeraj. Thank you. Before we get to not a guest of honor, but Tom representing China. So again, we're moving across into far parts of Asia. Dr. Tom Tao, welcome, and introduce yourself, please, my friend.
Thank you, Andrew. Tom Tao. I was originally came from China, and now I'm in the Delaware, US, and I've been in the CI field for about 30 years. And the first time I heard about the word competitive intelligence, it was when I was back in China. And Dr. John Prescott was the one that sort of brought that concept into China, and I immediately sort of loved that concept and then started to think about, can I get to learn from this guy? And so I applied for the PhD program at CATS, and the rest is history. And we had the opportunity to sort of commissioned a survey of the first time in China on the competitive intelligence practice back in 1999. And that probably is the start of a sort of more formal competitive intelligence research in China. And the corporate practice also start around that period of time. I would say early 1990s is the start of the more formal competitive intelligence practice in China.
Brilliant. Thank you, Tom, and great to have you here as well. So we've got Argentina, we've got the Netherlands, we've got India, and we've got China. So we span quite a bit of the world. One additional panelist joins us, our Australian perspective from a colleague, a fellow from Australia. The lady's name is Babette Bensoussan. Unfortunately, she can't join us live. She's nicely tucked up in bed. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. Australian time compared to UK time. So wherever you are, panelists, wherever you are, audience in the world, she won't be here, but she does send a video for the next 4 or 5 minutes that helps frame this whole idea of how cultures embrace CI differently. So I'm going to jump out of a slide view. I am going to play a video. It won't come through as video, it'll just probably come through as audio, but hopefully people will be able to hear this. Hang a mo. Let me. Can you hear?
No.
No, not yet.
Not yet. Hang a mo. Okay. Right. Oh. No. Okay. Like all good things, this worked earlier, but you can't hear anything, right, fellow panelists?
No.
No, that's fine. Okay, what I'll do then is I'll look to summarize what she says by coming back to the points that she raises, and I'll embellish the points that she raises as help us to kick off our discussion. So let me just share back the presentation, share, window, PowerPoint, share screen mode. So what Babette has sort of shared with me privately that I'm unable to share because of IT gremlins more broadly is that in essence she sort of called out a range of factors that will help us with our discussion. So one of the points that Babette makes is around there's a difference in communication style, and I'll explain a little bit more about that in teeing up how we'll then kick off on communication style. We will explore data gathering as well as being a anchor, a pillar associated with competitive intelligence practice around the world. Data availability, I think, is very different to data gathering, so we'll cover that. We'll also cover thinking styles associated with how different regions, different cultures think about things and how to solve for things. And then those were broadly the 4 themes that she brought in. We could throw in ethics. I think it would be quite good to throw in ethics. What is culturally acceptable in one part of the world may not be so acceptable in others. And then, you know, there's a sort of loose one towards the end around organizational position, i.e. of this practice. Is it more of a decentralized by department within marketing, or is it more of a centralized link to strategy more broadly? So that's a sort of back to Erin Mayer's framework. That's broadly the spine of what we will be exploring in the next few minutes with our great panel gathered here today. And please, as members of the audience, please, you know, punch in your questions, your feedback, your comments associated with the topics, and we can cover those either towards the end or we'll cover them offline and get back to you. As I did as part of the billing, we'll promise to capture all of these and play them back to you as a benefit to coming and registering with the CI Fellows. So that was broadly the spine, and what I will do now is I will move the slide forward. So in communication style, what Babette shared with me on a video that I'm unable to play back to you was that she said communication style is quite important as a topic of understanding and as a cultural difference. There are 2 polar opposites more broadly, and she said actually the Australians are quite direct with regards to the way that they communicate with people at a peer level or more seniors. And she referenced actually that there's more of a indirect or an indifference, i.e. a less challenging, less direct way of communicating back. And she used the example of China, and therefore I put them more towards the far right. So what you see in here is obviously the Australian flag more towards the direct structured comms pyramid approach, and then China more of the indifferent approach. Neeraj, how would you say the Indian culture deals with communication styles in business or in army in terms of getting across either the intelligence or the so what? What would you say about Indian practices?
All right, so the Indian business communication is, I would call it, is quite layered. It's relational, and it's often indirect.
Yeah.
So in CI terms, the meaning is often embedded in the framing rather than the explicit statements that we are used to say in the West, where people say things directly and you can make sense of what they are saying. But here, it's more roundabout and it's embedded in the framing itself. So the terminology reading between the lines is absolutely bang on for in the Indian context. So in this case, in the Western world, I presume an analyst may look for a sentence, but an Indian analyst would look for a pattern around the sentence, if you know what I mean. So this is basically what I would say. If I was to give a very bit of a frivolous example, actually, the Indian communication style is like a Bollywood movie trailer where the plot is rarely stated directly, but there are sufficient clues if somebody is reading carefully to find out as to where it is going. So this is how it is. The other part is gossip is also an intrinsic part of the Indian culture. I mean, I'm just saying it factually, and that's one reason why a lot of Indian companies do not have a very structured way of doing CI. Many of them don't have a CI structure because they believe that just listening to the grapevine and having relationships with other companies or other people gives them enough information which they then analyze and convert into actionable or otherwise intelligence. So the style is more relational, more on the fly and less structured than you would say in the West.
That's great. Thank you, Neeraj. So would you position the Indian flag more towards the 4 and the 5 end of things, it being less direct, more relational, less structured? That would be a proper assessment there?
You'd given us a scale, so when I was thinking about it, I thought 3.5 would be a good number.
Okay, brilliant. Right in the middle. Thank you for that. Tom, do you agree
Andrew,
with
something?
Yeah.
Andrew, something that I would say is we are not seeing where you are putting the flags.
No, I'm not moving anything on the flags. I'm just sort of sharing the slide.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll position the
No,
things
because
on the slide
it's
afterwards.
only the Babette one, the one that we are seeing.
Okay. Can you see the slide that's got communication styles axis in your region? Describe extreme.
Oh, yeah.
No. That was the reason for jumping in.
Good shout. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Yeah.
So let me share my screen again. End slideshow. I see your point. So let me do share screen again.
Now we can see it.
Yeah. Okay. Let me go to slide mode, share. Right. Share again.
Historically, it is perilous to ask the British to put their flag down somewhere. The saying.
Very good. Here we go. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Splendid. Marvelous. So yeah, so Tom, so if Neeraj has placed India slap bang in the middle, needing to try and think about the Bollywood movie, not really knowing where it's going, but looking at the inferred messaging and the unstructured style of that, would you agree that China is at the far end of this scale?
Well, it depends on what time that we're talking about. Let's say if it's before 2020, or even a little bit earlier, China is definitely on the right end, where it's certainly relational based and contextual style, and that's somewhat similar to what Neeraj has been describing. That we probably don't go for bluff, and we want to show the process. We want to show the circumstance, and then you arrive at conclusions, insights. But interestingly, if you look at the let's say the last decade or so, a lot of Chinese, especially the outward-looking Chinese firms like Alibaba or Tencent or BYD these days, and they're looking outward, and they are certainly going towards the world. And in that sense, they are a lot more open and a lot more, you can say, Western style of communication, because they need that and they need the fast decision-making process now. So it really changes over time.
Yeah. So as we sit here today, Tom, where would you put them on that 1 to 5 now?
I would probably move them to the middle a little bit, maybe 4 or 4.5.
Okay, brilliant. So thank you very much indeed for that. Any comments, Erik? Where would you plot Netherlands, Erik?
Normally, as a Dutch person, you would say, do you want a socially acceptable answer or a correct answer?
Yeah.
Which is already, of course, I say this with a purpose. It's a hint of the relatively direct nature of communicating with Dutch people, whether that's internationally, and if we, in our enthusiasm, make almost 8 billion other people lose their face, at least we brought our point along. But also in the Dutch setting, when you're a Dutch leader and leading people, you have to have a certain preference for masochism, because you will hear anything, good and bad, straight in your face, even when it's about yourself. And that is, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but not so much. So it suggests, on the one hand, a very direct style as a default, and a bit more diplomacy for those that have taken the trouble to think about things. And secondly, it's a pyramid for sure, but the pyramid is upside down in the Netherlands, because when you're going up in the ranks, you tend to be exposed to more directness rather than less directness, and you definitely will not be spared.
Brilliant. Yeah, I've worked with a number of Dutch leaders as CEOs, and you're quite right. It's direct, it's one way, and accept it and move on. Where would you place Argentina on this scale, Adrien?
Sorry, I think it is not, although direct, it is definitely not malicious by nature.
No. Thank you, Erik. Yeah.
I would put it on a 3, I would say, because we are indirect, but sometimes we are direct too. And the pyramid principle, it's not widespread here. I mean, it's used by consultancies mostly, because at school we are always taught introduction, development, and then conclusion. So, and this is the way you think, and this is the way you present things, right? It's not like you begin with the conclusion and then you go to supporting facts and the like in the Minto principle. So that's a difference. So I would say a 3 would be fair, right?
Yeah.
To assess it.
Sweet. Thank you very much indeed.
Can I jump in with one little caveat?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so I heard everybody, and I was just thinking that while what I just said about India is generally, I mean, as generalizations go, it is there. But the fact also is that India is several cultures, and even in business today, India has several cultures. This thought was triggered when Tom was speaking, that if you look at how Indian business today is, if you went to Bengaluru and looked at a technological setup, it would resemble Silicon Valley in its intelligence practices. But if you looked at the family-owned businesses and conglomerate, which are there all over India, it would be a very different ballgame altogether. It would be just all based on where the intelligence flows from the top and goes to the top. That's the originator and the person. If you go to defense PSUs, then you would see it's a more siloed approach. But overall, I would say Indian communication style is not direct. If someone said, Reliance is making interesting investments in telecom infrastructure, it could very well be interpreted as prepared for a market war. That could be the real meaning, actually. So that's generally true, but there are several cultures within India. So maybe you can, experience all. Yeah.
Yeah. No, great point, Neeraj. Thank you very much indeed. One of the other points in our CI culture map spine that Babette alluded to was the fact that data gathering is a topic. So in more Western environments and even in Australia, she was saying that because government infrastructures are very good at producing information, internet availability is quite wide. There is no real splinternet approach here in terms of that data offering, and therefore, there is a lot of public domain information. She did say that, a lot of what happens in Australia is very much driven about what you know. Whereas what she was trying to allude to separately is that in other cultures, and we'll come on to where that resonates most across our panelists, is more about who you know, because the government isn't producing as much public domain information. Who would like to address, is their culture, more who you know? Who would like to take that one with respect to their geography first?
I can start.
I think, yeah, sorry, Tom, go on.
Thank you. I think in China's case, it has always been sort of who you know to start from, and Guanxi is a critical asset that you have as a CI analyst to be able to get to who has that information and get to the more reliable source of information. But like what I said, change has been happening, and a lot more open source data is available now. And if you know where to look, and there are plenty of apps and websites and directories that you can get to these days to get access to a sea of data. So you can see two approaches coming together now. But the other thing that has been a major change is around 2023, 2024, there are several government rules and cases that happened that somewhat changed this equation because there was this counter-espionage law and this work secret regulation. And there was a famous read on several Western sort of CI or investigative companies back in 2023, 2024. I don't know whether you guys heard about MINS or Bain. And the other one is, I think it's called Cat Vision, where they invite experts to provide interviews about their industry, about their backgrounds. And that creates a problem within with the Chinese government, and they actually banned this practice to a large extent. And some of the interviewers or interviewees was actually sentenced to years of prison. So that has been a major change in the last 3 years or so.
Brilliant. And where would you place China now, today, in terms of that data gathering?
I would probably put it at 3.5 now.
Lovely. Thank you. Who would like to chime in with their perspective on where the data gathering is? Erik, am I right in thinking that because you're part of the European Union, you are automatically far left because it's all about what you know?
It was a leading question, if you don't mind, Andrew.
That's fine.
I'll try to answer it honestly, as that's I guess a Dutch habit. What the key line of my thinking would be that Dutch culture is extremely pragmatic. And that pragmatism starts when you realize that when the wonderful countries of India and China represented in this panel already had, say, written text and a wonderful culture in place, at least half of the current Netherlands was still what it is today, below sea level, with the difference that the sea was still there. So in other words, if you want to keep that sea out of at least half our country, you have to be pragmatic, because no point being a noble family and saying, I don't do these things when the water comes up. So that strongly egalitarian culture drives, in my humble view, that it is very, intelligence work tends to be rather task-oriented, which means that when open source does the job for you, what you know and how to get it will definitely suffice. Whereas if human comes into play, the who you know starts to matter. And managing that network with, as you say, Tom, some Guangxi, but then Dutch style, meaning you have a sandwich with cheese together. And that sort of concept, so it is a mix. It's task driven, and what you know and who you know both matter. But at the end of the day, it's all about getting the work done, because when the water comes up, everybody suffers if nobody works with the other one.
Brilliant. Thank you, Erik. Adrian, Neeraj, where would you position your respective countries on this axis around data gathering? Is it more what you know, or is it more who you know? Or are you going to be stuck in the middle?
In Argentina, I would say it's more who you know rather than what you know, because many times they say what you need is hidden, say, within an authority, for example, or a company. So who you know, and say more than who you know, human intelligence, I would say, because many times you don't know the person, but you engage them in conversation to get what you need. So human intelligence is key. I will put it in a 4 to 5 if you want.
Yep. Lovely stuff. Where would you say, Neeraj, where are you going to place India?
Well, I think it's certainly the scale would tilt heavily in the favor of who you know, and also in the favor of human intelligence, which is because of necessity, not just a preference. In the listed corporate sector in India, there is a lot of open intelligence available. But then the far larger segment of the economy or business is not listed or is working outside that area. So therefore, CI without human network would be absolutely missing the mark. Here, the formal infrastructure remains very incomplete, and therefore it's largely who you know. Here, relationship is the database. You know, the documentation and the LinkedIn and everything else might give you a designation, but eventually the driver might tell you exactly what is happening. It's the distributor who might tell you what is happening. In pharma, it is some former regulator who might tell you what is likely to happen. So the style is therefore very kind of adaptive. We have a word for it. It's called jugaad. Jugaad is when your resources are short and you really need to innovate, then you adapt a style which is frugal, adaptive, network-centric, and so on. So it is not chaotic. It's not chaos. It just simply means that you connect with, you find whatever form or shape you can, whatever means you can. I'm not talking about bad ethics, whatever methodology you may want to adopt, but what matters is getting information from another person. So in India, I would say an analyst who doesn't have a good extensive network would be like a fisherman with no access to water. I think it would be like that.
It's a great analogy. I think a lot of people can relate to that. Splendid. I think we've sort of addressed the data availability element, given either human or based on available data and transaction of material. So in essence, would the panel agree, before we move on to the next issue, would the panel agree that whatever we did say with regards to the previous issue of data gathering, that it's a similar position on the axis of who you know and what you know? Would that be fair? Just say yes, or if you disagree, chime in as to why you would disagree.
Agree.
Splendid. Marvelous. Yeah. Okay, that's fair. One of the things that Babette, or the last point that Babette sort of made on her video, was the fact that, you know, while Australia is a small nation from a population perspective, it does tend to, it has the same, you know, size as America, for example. That was her frame of reference. And she also sort of referenced the fact that when sometimes Western organizations look to expand overseas, their thinking styles are less innovative, and they think that they can perhaps just replicate what's gone on before. So if we think about Starbucks in Israel, you know, they think that they can replicate the same model as they had in the United States overseas, and therefore it becomes more conformative driven. Who would like to say where generally their country's cultures are with regards to thinking styles? Is it more innovative in terms of trying to get new things done in different ways, or is it more sort of taking what's worked somewhere else and trying to, you know, relay that in there? Who would like to sort of align to where either end of these sentiments is?
It's kind of complicated, Andrew, because one is very positive in positioning, in a way innovative, and conformity driven is, I would say, negatively. So I think we all are gonna be saying, well, our culture is innovative. Let me tell you why I think in our case it's true. We must, out of necessity, be innovative in a way. Give you just one data. Right now, the current administration is extremely successful because it has driven inflation down to 30%. It was 30% per month 3 years ago. So you have to be innovative or find new ways of doing things, because, and everything changes. You can wake up one day and import restrictions. There might be import restrictions and you can't import any longer. So you have to be innovative. Our farmers are the most innovative in the world. And I say that because they were charged 35% of revenues. I'm talking revenues as a tax. And if they made a profit after that, they were charged 35% again as, say, earning taxes. I had a farmer in Brazil who said, well, you know what? I have a farm in Argentina just to learn how you guys do, because this is not for getting any earnings out of there, but for getting learnings out of there. So I think we are innovative out of necessity, if you want, rather than out of because of we are, in a way.
No, thank you for that, Adrien. Would anybody disagree? Are you all at the far end of innovative? Because not only from a CI practice, we have to do that at times, or are we going to conform to the Babette point of view that broadly says, apologies for anybody on the phone from the United States, it may not be as straightforward. If I were sat here in the UK, for example, I would argue that, you know, we are not as innovative as other nations represented here, based on, you know, the speed at which we can get some things done. Where would other panelists believe they are? Are we all down the innovative stage with Adrien and Babette? Yeah.
I think there is a little paradox here when we come to my part of the world. The paradox is that institutionally speaking, the Indian competitive intelligence perhaps cannot be called highly innovative at all. Most methodologies are simply imported or borrowed from the Western frameworks. But at practitioner level, out of necessity, Indian analysts are extraordinarily adaptive and very innovative. So at a tactical level, at the practice level, you would find them doing a lot of innovative stuff which doesn't exist in CI textbooks. For example, regional level, regional language, WhatsApp monitoring, or informal distributor networks or alumni networks, and mining data out of all of that. So these methods are innovative and they work. And like I said, they are not necessarily in the CI textbook. In the West, somebody might say, so what is the established methodology? In India, people would say, what will work by Monday? What will work by Monday? I will talk about methodologies later, but what can it work? See, here, if you look at it, the commercially relevant discourse is not just in English. So that itself lends to innovation. It's in multiple languages. A host of languages happen. And if a CI team is working only on English, they would probably miss out 60 to 70% of the signal. So out of sheer necessity, while there would be, I would say, weaker processes or tooling, but there is a much stronger pattern recognition instinct born out of innovation. That's what I would say.
No, brilliant. Thank you, Neeraj.
Andrew.
Yes.
Maybe slightly different perspective. First of all, you could perhaps describe the extremes as, on the one hand, bespoke and one-off rather than innovative, and on the other hand, standardized, repeatable.
Yeah.
I think,
great call.
Again, in a pragmatic session, as there would be in any large Dutch company practicing this, the bespoke one-off could only be justified by the size of the price of what to achieve in terms of improvement of quality of decision making, either preventing mistakes of senior management happening or supporting major, say, investments, etc. So the amount of work that you can allow yourself to do is relatively limited in terms of hours, if only because the Netherlands is one of the top countries when it comes to average salary per worker per hour.
Yep.
So you need to be intrinsically efficient, and that efficiency means when it's bespoke, one-off, we tend to do, as Neeraj say, be as pragmatic as possible. Whatever works, be quick and make sure you're very cost conscious. When it is on the standardized, repeatable level, it needs to become a dashboard. And as soon as it's proven its worth, it needs to be automated where reasonably possible. And then recurrently updated as a permanent traffic light, for instance, for your business. So that would be the two extremes, but the ultimate driver would be efficiency.
Yeah, no, that's a great perspective. Anything from you, Tom? Is that how you would also see it in China as well, the whole standard and bespoke?
Well, in China, if you look at I think it's always a parallel. When you look at the state-owned enterprises, it's sort of more on the right-hand side, more conformity-driven style, where you have the hierarchy, you have a relatively rigid structure. But if you look at the private and outward-looking firms, again, like the Tencent or BYD, they are dealing with not a domestic market. They're looking at the global market, and they are going to South America. They're going to Southeast Asia. They're going to Europe. So the environment they're walking into is very much different from what they have been comfortable with the domestic market. So they have to be innovative in terms of how to access information, who to talk to, how to establish your analytical tools and thinking styles, and you have to hire local people to work for you, and that apparently will bring in all different kind of thinking styles into the practice. And so again, if you look at and it's growing, the body of firms that are more and more global, more and more outward looking, they are apparently have to be innovative.
Yeah, no, great shout. Our last one, I think, based on time that we have available today, is around ethics. I don't know what the extremes are in ethics, right? Is ethics a right vertebrae on our spine to have with regards to our culture map? Not saying, yeah, how would panelists talk about ethics? What do they think are the polar opposites here, and where would you place your, country with regards to a flavor of ethics? I'm saying that cultures will view ethics differently, and perhaps, yeah, who would like to start on the ethics dynamic across the market?
Well, I can say that in India, ethics is governed by the practitioner. There is not a codified system like you have. Let's say it's not like a German level of human restriction, nor is it codified like the SKIP. US
Yeah.
SKIP used to have a code of ethics. I have never seen a code of ethics like that, but I think people are sensitive. It is driven by the practitioner himself as to what level of ethic or where exactly to draw the line in the sand. But I think what is implicit rule, Indian rule is relational, and the implicit rule is don't embarrass the source.
Yeah.
Don't burn the network. Don't let down the people you're dealing with. So it's more relational than codified, I would say.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would like to leave it at that.
Thank you. So we've got sort of codified at one extreme. Let's say that's more the 1 and 2 boxes, and then we've got the more relational element and don't burn the sources at that end. Who else would like to comment on that issue?
In China, you probably will have to bring in the law aspect into this picture. As I mentioned previously, the 2023 or 2024 incidents has really changed the entire landscape of how do you do human intelligence in China, where let's say we used to have this expert interview network that you can tap into and get access to information without a problem. But after the incident, the law comes in, the regulation comes in, and people are getting really jittery about what can I say, what is the boundary here, and it's very difficult to navigate right now for Western firms investigating in China.
Yeah, no, great call. Adrienne,
Yeah.
Erik?
Yeah, no, I mean, what I would say is we are in the middle. We don't have any, say, written code like the skip one, at least in Argentina. We, of course, you never have to burn the source because you are not going to talk to them again. So it's out of necessity, I would say. I would also say that it depends on the company. It depends on the company. I work as a consultant in 26 years. Only once I had a customer asking me or our company to do something completely illegal, I would say. And we turned them down immediately. So I would say behavior is, even though there isn't a strict code or the like, people don't want, or people working at companies don't want to get embarrassed, so they behave in a way. So that's why they are good. However, there are always a rotten apple in the lot, right? I mean, like these guys that approach us, but they are a minority.
Yeah, no, great thoughts. Erik, any point of view?
Well, thank you, Tom, for putting forward the relevance of compliance. Of course, when you, as I was, when in a large company, you're head of global of intelligence as part of the strategy department, it's not just practicing, it's also a lot of training and training people in the company. And then automatically we always train the chapter compliance and ethics, emphasizing that what is compliant may not be ethical, but what is ethical by default is compliant.
Mm.
Within the company I used to work for, that is a thing that the company itself actively communicates. So I'm breaking no company secrets. We had a very solid code of ethics in place for how the company did business. And I have been so fortunate to have been invited by the corporate legal team that was, say, the custodian of that code of ethics to together with them formulate code specifically focused on collection in market intelligence, which included not to work with strange fellows that offered all kinds of magnificent things where you almost by default knew that it could never be compliant, at least never be ethical, and it probably wouldn't be compliant either. In the trainings we gave, we used two very simple examples. One was the newspaper test. What would doing this mean to the company? And that's, of course, it's an old test, but it's still valid. Mean to the reputation of the company if tomorrow's headlines online or in print would feature this. And second one would be when you get up next morning and you look in the mirror of your bathroom, can you look at yourself in relation to matching means with, say, goals? And if not, step back.
Yes, it's a solid gut feel, right? If it starts to appear in newspapers, would you be comfortable with it? But less about that. I completely agree with that element of compliance and the ethic behavior of this. That's brilliant. I mean, what on reflection, what this says to me is that, as Aaron Mayer's book alludes to, there are different styles of engagement here, and to practice, competitive intelligence as successfully across the regions, it does mean that we have to adapt our styles to get to the best outcomes, whether that's communicating. I recognize that English isn't the first language for everybody, and therefore being able to put things down to allow other colleagues to reflect on that is important for them to then challenge and ask questions associated with what the ask is if they are in market from a collection perspective. But equally, in terms of that whole narrative, in terms of what the so what is, do you get to the bottom line up front, aligning towards the ethical and compliance and the ways of the working of that organization and that culture is super important. So do recognize that there are cultural differences across the markets of our panelists. I'd really like to thank Adrienne, Erik, Neeraj and Tom for taking the time out to join us this morning, this evening, this afternoon, wherever you are in the world. And just to close down, we would very much like your feedback, less so about the technical challenges I enjoyed, but more about the feedback of this. Please either use this QR code or use the link that you can see here below, SurveyMonkey /R/7P9LD for Detroit, F for Florida, L for Louisiana, in terms of the URL. What happens is that we'll enter people who provide their feedback in a prize draw. The prize draw prize this month is a book title by Craig Fleischer and David Blencorn on competitive intelligence and global business. And if you want to get more understanding of the Competitive Intelligence Fellows, come to us on our LinkedIn page. That's the URL, linkedin.com/company/Council of Competitive Intelligence, or the YouTube, where our back catalogue of our webinars to date is available, as well as through the cifellows.com website. And we hope that we will be able to see you again at our third Thursday webinar. Recognise that for May it was our third Thursday webinar in June. I'd like to thank Adrienne from Argentina, Erik from the Netherlands, Neeraj from India, and Tom, resident in the United States, but representing the points of view from China, as well as our esteemed colleague, who I've done a massive disservice to, Babette Bensoussan, by not being allowed to get a video to work. But thank you very much indeed, panelists, and we very much look forward to seeing you again soon. And I'll just put that slide back for you to either grab the QR code or grab the URL to be entered in for our prize draw for that book title on the right hand side. Again, thank you very much indeed, panelists. Thank you very much indeed, audience. Yeah, very much look forward to seeing you again soon. Any feedback, please state it, and I'll share the summary of what we discussed here, either as a video link and the PowerPoint address as well. So you'll have that in your inboxes shortly. Thank you very much indeed, and enjoy the rest of the afternoon, evening, or good morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Erik. Cheers, Adrienne. Thank you, Tom. Cheers,
Thank you.
Neeraj. Ciao.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.